back to the Moonspots podcast. The last podcast didn't get so well received as the other podcast. It was a bit more negative, and I'm not gonna lie, I did pick a side in the Tony fiasco. I do want to give my sincerest of apologies of being unprofessional, but I will not take down the podcast. I have worked too hard on that podcast, and secondly, Tony's my friend, and for better or worse, he's okay with me putting up the podcast, and he's the only guy in the podcast besides me, of course. So I'm not gonna take down that podcast. Now coming to this podcast, Oca. This is a lot more positive and less controversial podcast. In this podcast, we talked about pay as a teacher / counselor for Southwestern.
I was paid the most I had ever been paid in my life when I got that job.
We talked about Mr. Oka's relationship with Mr. Veranda.
Oh yeah, he's a dick. Like, I'm not gonna say it.
And we talked about Dr. Oka's relationship with Meander.
He's a huge influence in my life, man. And I can tell you that he's a great friend of mine for the rest of my life and the rest of his. And I appreciate him very much, and I hope I can offer the same amount of value that he did in my life.
It's a more positive podcast than the last one, and I think listeners will get a lot out of it, whether a moral or just an advice in life, because I surely did. Have you ever checked out the first episode yet?
I did. I didn't check it all out because there was a lot of shit talking, and I was like, all right, that's cool. But to be honest with you, yeah, it was like a lot of shit talking. I was like, all right, that's cool. I did appreciate the little shout out by you and Michael. I did appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. At the beginning, I was like, oh my God, dude, there's a lot of shit talking.
When you talk about shit talking, like, what do you mean precisely?
Just like what?
Are you talking about like when I talk about coaching? Is that because like everyone seems to like have a big problem with that for some reason?
Let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you this, man. I'll tell you this. It's you do it your way. It's important to do it your way. For me personally, it's hard to look at things negatively, man. To be quite honest with you, it's hard to look at anything negatively. When I'm looking at Dallo right now on Zoom, and I look at it like, yeah, we talked about like I know Southwestern Academy was brought up, like all these fucking morons go to school there sometimes, and you're like, what the hell's wrong with them? Like all that stuff. I was like, okay, yeah, but like look at the relationships you guys have. For me, it's important to look at not only I don't even think it's worth looking at the negative shit, to be honest, because you can't change it. 1.
No.
2, it doesn't make you grow. 3, it actually fucks with your mind, and then you get to a point where you're just constantly thinking of the bad shit. So like if you just focus on the good, like I'm looking at like, man, really cool. Like the shout out at the end, I appreciate it. I didn't expect it. Like I listened to, like I actually went through bits and pieces. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. I cut through it. Like at the beginning, I was like, all right, a lot of shit talking. And then I went like another 5 minutes. So I was like, okay, more shit talking, more shit. I listened to a total of about 15 minutes of it, but at like stages, because there was a stage where it was a lot of like, oh dude, you grabbed my thigh, and like I grabbed ass, and like I got like that was cool, right? I got it. That's funny. And then you go to like the next one, and then I got to the coaching part, and I was like, cool. And then you guys, I happened to catch the part where you mentioned me, which like I'm a huge fan of. I appreciate it, but that's not the reason. That's not the reason. Man. Like I appreciate. I say yes to you, and I'll tell you because I told other people here. Look, I think it's cool that you're fucking going for it. I think it's great that you're going for it. I think I can do nothing more than support you when you go for it. And I also think it's important to be a critic, because you want to grow. I'd recommend like 100%, dude, even going to this podcast thing. Lewis Howes, when he first started, I don't know if you know who he is, but it's called the School of Greatness. Look it up, dude. School of Greatness. Sure. He's got a podcast. His most famous one, of course, was 2 months before Kobe was killed. And that was with Kobe 2 months before. That's his most famous one. Like that's the one that put him on the map, on a bigger map, right?
Right.
But he had already been doing. I mean, I think he had already at that point done 950 podcast interviews. That's so like insane. We were like, oh, overnight sensation. We're like, nah, Dick. 950 podcasts is not overnight. It takes some time. So I think it's really cool that you're doing this, man. I think it's really, what's the point? Like, what's the reason you're going for it, right? Like, what's the reason? I think we always, you were in my class, you know what it's like, man. I always ask the reason why. Why are you even doing it, man?
My reason, right, is, well, there's two reasons really. My first reason is just the nostalgic and just like, I want to talk about the school because I love high
Sure.
school. Some people don't love high school, like Southwestern, as much as I do. But like I generally love Southwestern Academy. But obviously, when we talk about Southwestern Academy, when you talk about the good things, you got to talk about the bad things. And some people,
Sure.
the bad things are more than the good things, and some people, the good things are more than the bad things.
Your first guest, yeah. Your first guest gonna have a lot of negative, even though I love him. I mean, he's always been that way, so it's fine.
Oh, the next two guests, they're not gonna be positive. I hope you're gonna be the first positive one, to be honest with you.
I'm only gonna be positive, man. But
Yeah,
I'll tell you as it is. So go for it.
My second reason is this is probably just gonna be like a practice podcast for me, because to be honest with you, there's like zero marketing value on just talking about Southwestern Academy. That's just obvious. Like even I know that there's no like any marketing value, but there's always value on experience. And what everyone says about doing a podcast, it's so hard to do with just consistency and finding a guest every week. And I just thought of like, you know what? I have a pool of like literally high schoolers that I could just like contact with through Instagram, Facebook, phone, whatever, right? I could use that as like practice, and I want to try as hard as I can to make this as good as possible, and and see how hard it actually is, and if I could actually do a real podcast, like per se.
Ultimately, you're gonna find, man, it is as hard as you think it is. But here's the difference: it's always as hard as you think it is. It's harder, but the great part of it is that you're doing it, and that's the game. The game is doing it. It's not being great at it. It's not finding value in it. The value is your value. What value do you get out of it? And that's really where it's at. So, I think when you mention something like marketing, like the marketing is not, there's no marketing for it or whatever. Let me tell you, it doesn't fucking matter, man. Is there marketing for you? Is there marketing for you? Does it provide any value to you?
Of course. I wouldn't be doing it so often and so like passionately if there's no like other money value to it.
That when I hear that, I always think, when the initial comment of there's no marketing value, I always think like, is this guy scared of what people think of his podcast? And let me tell you something. You should take criticism, and you should take it. You should write it down. You should look at the point, say, okay, that's a good point. That's a valid point. I should work on that. But understand that haters will always criticize you even trying something that they're sitting on their ass all day with, doing nothing. Yeah. Critics are critics for a reason, because they do nothing. They just criticize.
Yeah.
That's easy. It's easy to criticize Elon Musk's self-driving car. Last time I checked, that's the only car that self-drives. So go ahead and criticize it.
Yeah.
But he's doing something.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point, man. And so you keep doing it until you find no more value, or until you find you provide no value. To me, this will morph into what you want it to morph into. It you can come up with your description of what you want, but the conversations will take you somewhere, and the interviews will take you somewhere else. And that's important, and having a good variety of things is important. I'm glad you chose me as a second, and then your third might be another student. You want to get different perspectives, right? And that's important.
You're not the second, Mr. Oka.
Or third,
I'm sorry.
whatever. That's fine.
You're fourth. You're fourth.
You're fourth. It's okay, man.
I'll still be the best. I'm sorry to kill your ego, but you're fourth. To be honest,
here's what I know about my ego, dude. It's strong. And here's the other part. I know I'm number one, even if I'm number 4. So I'm not worried about it.
No. I was gonna say, to be honest with you, I wanted to again have like a little practice with like some friends that I know that I could like screw up with, and then get to a teacher, and then slowly build up to like a bigger status. Like, I don't know, like Mr. Asmonson, or some maybe like Mr. Veranda.
Anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's important, man. And I think you're going about it the right way, and that you're starting. And I'm a firm believer you start on the right foot, which is also, we talk about like things like starting with like meditations in the morning, or eating a healthy breakfast, or going to work out. Like, it's a start, right? And in my opinion, a podcast, a business, everything has to start on a strong footing that you can control. So there's certain things you can control on a podcast. I don't have a podcast. I've wanted to do one. I don't have the time at the moment to do it. One day I will. But in my opinion, you start with what you can control. And if you can control things like internet, sound, formats, editing, if you can control those things, make sure you are. Because you can't necessarily control the interview per se. But if I were a chef, I would want to watch other chefs be chefs. If I were a person doing podcasts, I would listen to a lot of podcasts that I enjoy and look at how they operate and how they prepare, and like I don't know where you want to go with this. If this is just like fucking around for a while, or if this is something you really want to find value in. You might find that this thing finds value in you and eventually grows into whatever it is it's going to grow into. But preparation, man, so important, dude. So important. That's the advice I could give you, man. You're a young guy and you're going for it. Don't ever lose that either. Don't be scared, man. Be nervous, but just do it anyway.
When you say you're starting off, I did a little research on your background, Mr. Oka. You worked in Looking Glass Children, with autistic children. And then obviously you've talked about it a lot of times in your classes that you have an orphanage in Mexico and you work with giving educational resource. You obviously have a cleaning service. All of these are just shows like how an incredible person you are and helping like people in need, right? Why did you become a counselor in Southwestern? I feel like that's such a odd, just an odd thing to do. I mean, like, you're helping orphans and you're helping spoiled children from China. Those are two different, like, incredibly different things.
I don't know if I've always been, but as far as I could remember, I've always felt a need to help in whatever I could help with, right? I come from a culture that gauges their happiness by other people's happiness. I've had to work to battle that, to be quite honest, because I've realized that Dallo's happiness should not make me happy, because Dallo's unhappiness will then make me unhappy, right? And so that's something I had to work on. But I mean, that's a long stretch of time, right? Like, yes, I enjoy helping people 100%. I don't believe anything's worth it if you're not making people better. I don't think anything is worth it. I also believe in being better so people can watch you as an example. When I went to Southwestern Academy, I was already a dorm parent. So I was already a dorm parent there. And I strictly went there for purpose of financial reasons. I didn't have to pay rent. And I was finishing at UCLA. And I still had my job as a therapist. So I was like rolling in dough at that point. For me, right. Like, we didn't have that. So like, for me, it was like pulling in like $8,000 a month because I had 2 jobs and I didn't pay rent. Like, what? Like, I had my therapy job, I had the dorm. I was like, and I was a student. I didn't have any time to spend my money. So that was purely financial, good reason. When I got there is when I realized, like, man, these guys are cool. Like, they're cool kids. I enjoy being around them. I enjoy being around kids your age, typically younger. I think at this age, unfortunately, if I look at track records, sometimes the world isn't as beautiful as it used to be in high school. And as you get older, it's not as positive as it used to be when you were younger. And I find that like younger children, kids, teenagers still have a little bit of like hope that the world's still a nice place. And I'm a big fan of remembering that, right? Because it's easier to remember that, for me, to remember good moments and happy moments and remember that the world is positive versus like the world is not. And so when I went there, quite honestly, it started with some terrible characters at Southwestern Academy that were, for me, the greatest kids I'd ever met. They were just fuck ups, in quotes, right? And so one of those is Luke Park. who you didn't know. None of these guys you're gonna know.
No,
But
no.
Luke Park, there was
Mhm.
Ilya, there was Ricky Chu. I mean, there were people and there were like, dude, these guys were the pure, like the purest of the purest fuck ups
I've heard
ever.
stories. I've heard stories from like when I was like a freshman about like
Yeah,
Ricky, I think. Just like
maybe,
I
right?
wouldn't
Yeah,
say
they're not good
insane.
stories. Yeah,
Insane.
they're not good stories.
Insanity.
But for me, I was like, dude, I love these kids.
That's
I love
insane.
these
That
guys, man. I'm like, they're good kids. You ask them, we had a positive relationship, and oftentimes I find like the person who's the most hurt, the person who's the most broken, the person who's the shittiest in class is typically the one that's the most broken and requires the most help. In my opinion, you don't help the person with two perfect legs to walk. You help the one that's missing a leg. You get him to walk. And so I've always been of that mindset. You have to help the person that's on the bottom. And in my opinion, those three guys were labeled as that. And I was told upon entrance that's what they were. But
really.
for me, I could care less, bro. I was like, hey, let me make up my own interpretation of what they are as people. At the core of most everyone, there's a good person. At the core, like that person is still a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old that looks at flowers and is like, wow, or looks at the sun and goes, wow, or like touches grass, like for the first time, right? Like there's still those kids. They just happen to grow older and have bad experiences. So for me, I've always looked at that as like, I like people who are meant to be nothing. I like people who are beat up. I like people who feel like they'll never accomplish anything, because those people at the end are hungrier for good things in life. They just need to be led that way. So there's your answer, man. That's why I ended up at Southwestern.
What fascinates me a little bit is that you said that you were warned by people that these kids were bad people.
Mm-hmm.
When you say you were warned, was that by like other students or was that by other teachers?
Both.
Really?
Yeah, both.
As a teacher, how often do you talk about students behind their back? Not that sounds terrible, but like just like
Look, does it exist? Yeah, I'd be lying to you if I said it doesn't exist.
yeah.
Do I do it? Could care less, man. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons I didn't have the greatest peer-to-peer relationships, because I just didn't partake in the bullshit, to be honest. Let me make my decision, man. What do you care? Don't sit here and tell me that kid's nothing, because you know what? You're looking at a kid that was nothing. You're interviewing a kid that was nothing. The last time I checked, I'm doing all right. So
no, you're doing great. From like again, my research is literally just looking through your Facebook page and LinkedIn and what have you, and it looks like you're doing great. You have your own office. That's better where I was gonna be like,
I'll tell you, man, it's not the office. The office doesn't mean anything, bro. I'm gonna tell you. It's the impact on other people, man. Are people better when they're around our companies? Are they better when they're around me or you? If they're better people around us and we're making them better and we're providing that impact that changes their lives forever, then it matters. Then it matters. The office, the car, I can show you my car, I can show you my house, I can tell you how much I have in the bank account. None of that means shit. Let me just tell you, it doesn't mean anything. But the impact, right? Because you can have a lot of money and have zero impact and be wealthy, and people will give you praise because you're amazing. Well, I don't think that's amazing to me. To me, that's not amazing. But it's what you do with it, right? And so I'm fortunate enough to do what I do, man. I love what I do. I'm a very happy person doing what I do. And going towards happiness and impact and growth is always the answer for me, which is why I don't stay anywhere for more than like 4-5 years. If I'm not growing anymore, I find myself just moving on. That's the truth. But yeah, I mean, I got a few things going. It's not bad. Yeah.
You seem like the type of person that isn't really driven by money. I think you're more driven to like helping other people. But I do want to ask, just like a rough estimation. As a counselor, do you think that you were paid well? because obviously you did an amazing job at it. I think any student that goes to Southwestern could say that. But would you say that pay
Here's the thing,
was?
man. To me, I was paid the most I had ever been paid in my life when I got that job. For me, ever. Like I had never received checks bigger than that. So for me, I was cool. I don't care about the money. I'll say it again. I don't care. I've never cared. However, I like money. I really do. I enjoy it. I enjoy it and I get the most out of it. It provides me with freedom. It provides me with time with my family. It provides me to impact more. And they always say it's like, oh, rich people are assholes. Well, I know a lot of poor
No,
assholes too.
no,
I know a
no.
lot of poor assholes and I know a lot of rich assholes.
Yeah.
In my opinion, money just makes you more of what you already are. And that's the truth. So when you ask me a question like, was I paid enough? Look, man, I'm going to tell you something. If a teacher makes an impact, if a counselor makes an impact, you're never going to get paid enough. That's the truth. But if a teacher or a counselor sits there, collects a check, and is a lazy ass, then they're getting paid too much. Value comes from the impact you have on people, period. It's a business. I am a business. My value comes from me. I am a business. If I didn't provide enough value to get paid more, then that's on me. That's on me. So if you ask me, do we get paid enough to it? I'm not going to complain, man, because I know a lot of lazy teachers, and I'm not talking about Southwestern Academy, but I know a lot of lazy teachers everywhere I've worked that get paid way too much to sit on their ass all day. And I know people who get paid way too little.
Yeah.
But
No,
this is capitalism.
Yeah, it's what it is. It's just a question that keeps on getting brought up in my just 4 episodes is that tuition. That's why I wanted to ask you. Yeah. The tuition in Southwestern is incredibly high, especially for international students or any student in that matter, even without living in the dorm. And one of the questions is just like, where is that all going to? So I've talked to Brennan in one of these podcasts, and we talked about how it could go to like the Beaver Creek campus, because obviously there isn't that much people there, but it does need a lot of maintenance with like the animals and the big area and what have you.
Sure.
I somewhat estimated that it might be renovations. Southwestern has been doing a lot of renovations, and the money's got to come from somewhere, right? And another theory is obviously teacher pay.
I would say that a chunk of, I run a business, nonprofit, so I know what pay looks like. A chunk of the pay at that school goes to teachers. I mean, a huge percentage of it. It's actually it's the biggest percentage, and that's without knowing the books. Here's my question. I'm going to flip it because I'm also a capitalist. What's your favorite food, man?
Chicken sandwich. Yeah.
So you got 2 chicken sandwich places, right? You got the guy who charges $20 for a chicken sandwich, and you got the guy who charges $3 for a chicken sandwich. This is the beauty of America and capitalism. You could pick whichever the fuck you want. It's your chicken sandwich. You want the $20 one or the $3 one? Do you find value in the 20 or the 3? Part of capitalism is that the consumer determines whether it's too little or too much money. So here's one thing I will say. I find it comical when students who are on financial aid look at an alternative, and this is going to get frowned upon, but I don't care. They look at an alternative of a school that's going to give them 0 safety and provide very little in terms of education, because those are the options sometimes for these financial aid students. And then they go Southwestern in San Marino, safety and higher goals. Okay. And they say, this is a ripoff. The thing that's costing less than this thing and giving nothing. I think that's a mindset thing. You put me at any school, I promise you I'm coming out on top, because my mindset's different. Because I can look at an example of one student going to Southwestern Academy and saying it was a piece of shit, it was terrible, they treated me like shit. And then I can look at the other student that had the same opportunities and did magical things in 4 and 8 years after college. I look at it that way. Is it too high? Is it too low? Are people paying for it? Then the answer is, that's the answer. Do I think it's a ripoff? Here's the thing. I think it's a ripoff to eat Subway sandwiches for $5. I'd rather spend 20 on a really good sandwich because I find the nutritional value in a really good sandwich is higher than a $5 Subway sandwich. So my vision is different. I look at the sandwich not in terms of money. I look at it in terms of nutritional value. If you look at something, at a sandwich in terms of money, then the $20 sub is really just ridiculous price. But if you're looking at nutritional value and what it does for your body, then the $5 sub is actually the ripoff. See? So it's really, in my opinion, it's a question that has been wrapped around philosophically for you. So you're not really getting an answer on this, other than the truth of the matter is the price is the price. And people are willing to pay. Therefore, I don't know what people are complaining about. Because those same people might buy Jordans that are $350 and say that that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy to me is hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, it's a funny thing. So you're telling me that those $350, those Air Jordans that are $350, or those Beats that you left in the gym and you don't care about anymore, those are fiscally responsible. You're responsible. Those are fine. That's a good deal. But you could just leave them there for someone else to take them. That's a good deal. But the school is a ripoff. Like, oh, okay, man, cool. You know, one thing teaches you, the other one blasts music in your ears. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. What do I know?
It's a good way. It's an interesting way to think about it. You're obviously like the first guy to bring it that way. It's a fascinating way to think about it.
I love business, man. I love business and I love capitalism. It's the greatest thing. It's the one that gave my family a life. We come from essentially what was a third world country, is now a second, but was a third world country that didn't give a shit. So you tell me why I love capitalism? Because it gave my family something. It gave us a chance. That's what I love about it, man. And so it goes back to a bigger picture, which is like capitalism as a whole. A person will pay what it's worth because that's what it's worth to them. Now, if you get 0 students in there, there's your answer. Business fails, you move on. It happened to Blockbuster. It happened to Kmart. Biggest companies in the world. Netflix beat them. Walmart beat them. That's the answer, man. You got to innovate.
That's interesting. That's interesting because Southwestern is a big like question mark for me. In one sense that I get so much like experience from it. Obviously, I wouldn't even do this podcast stuff if I never went to Southwestern Academy, would never do this podcast stuff in the first place.
Exactly.
But in another sense, I do feel like so bad for my parents to need to like financially burden them with that much amount of money for 4 years. Look, like the more I grow, the more I realize how big that amount is. And the more I realize I just like, damn, I'm so sorry. Like I feel like I could have had a better deal somewhere. I don't know. It's just.
That's a very good point, and I'm gonna flip it on you right now. I'm gonna ask you something. Do you think it's Southwestern Academy's fault that you didn't get more out of it?
I think it's a bit of both. I think I could have. You don't think so?
Wait, go ahead. Tell me your answer, man. You know what I'm coming with, so go for it.
Sure. I think it's a bit of both because in one sense that I think I could have done a lot more in Southwestern Academy. I could have been more involved. I could have been involved in student government if I really, really tried, but I didn't. But in another sense, I feel like Southwestern Academy with that price point should be able to give me a little bit more. For example, as simple as like a straight soccer field. Like, I mean, it's not a lot, but like, or like a gym that we could use the whole year. It's like, again, not a lot, but like for the price point, like, sure, you might say that some people pay for it, but I still think it's an incredible financial burden that I at the time, like, of course I thought it was a good idea, but like, I feel like I screwed up. I think your words that you just said twice are very important. I screwed up. You know, I screwed up is a good thing to say because it takes away the power from anyone else other than yourself. And that's something I'm like obsessed with, man. Like I'm obsessed with having the power.
whether to succeed or to fail.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, but I'm going to do one of them, succeed or fail. But you know what's great? I can look in the mirror and say it's my fault. Soccer fields, gyms, management, the treating of students, the perception of what a teacher and a student relationship is like. To me, if you're asking as a critic, I think they have a lot to be improved.
Yeah.
My relationship with you guys was always very friendly, but here's the funny thing. People are like, oh, he's always, I've heard this before. He's just trying to be friendly with all the kids. Fine. But let me ask you something. And I think you could be the perfect answer to this. Did any of those students ever disrespect me? And if they did they ever do it again?
No.
So
They're like the Holy Spirit.
Right. I don't know about that, but my point is simple. We get what we give. If you didn't give enough to Southwestern Academy, you didn't get anything from it. If I didn't give to you guys my heart, my soul, my giving a shit, you wouldn't give it to me. If I didn't respect you, you wouldn't respect me. And so I'm a firm believer that you get what you give. And if we lived with that simple concept in everything, I think we'd be better as humans. So are there things could be improved cosmetically? 100%. I don't find that schools have a good enough system to succeed in the future. Their system is too traditional and based on a curriculum and a system that was started 50 to 70 years ago. And the world has changed a bit in 50 to 70 years.
A little bit.
A big bit. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, a little bit. Not much. And so my thing is that although the minds haven't changed, the fact of the matter is that 60s teenagers and 70s teenagers were those like coked out kids that were just like creating all this havoc, right? And then in the 80s was like the big AIDS thing. And then like there was a lot of different things in each generation. We've all had those things in our generation. So like now your generation is just the like, oh, I don't give a shit. Oh, I just want to be on my phone. And like that's all you are. But I think as a different generation, I look at it and I say, well, I'm kind of stupid for saying that. It's very ignorant for me to say that, because before telephones being in front of you like this or iPads or whatever, there was a newspaper that was like this. And a little bit after that, there was a TV that was like this. There's always been something that was here in front of everyone's face. And so my biggest criticism of education as a whole, and I don't say it about Southwestern because I see it everywhere, is that we choose not to connect to those children. And we choose not to acknowledge that these kids need more than a book and a reading assignment. I could honestly say to you that my class had a bigger impact than any of the core classes on these students. And I can say that with confidence. And maybe it's a false confidence, but I'm almost certain that it had a bigger impact in their lives. Otherwise, I wouldn't get Instagram messages, text messages, phone calls. I wouldn't get that from a bunch of random kids that I forgot I made an impact on. It happens.
Yeah. Oh.
My point is simple. When you do things for the right reasons and you forget and you remember that you were once a misunderstood kid, then you can understand that kid. And that is the most important part. So I could talk about the soccer field and the gym. I can talk about the internet being slow. I can talk about the crappy food. In my opinion, had everything else been great, you would never thought of any of those.
That's an interesting, again, very interesting take on it. You mentioned about perspective, right? We're like financial aid kids. You are obviously one of the big Hispanic recruiters. I think I talked to Brennan about it, and I think your wife went to his middle school. That's how you ended up recruiting him. And you obviously recruit the 4 or 5 kids from
Several,
Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at this point the number is like 20.
How and why? Like
how? Persistence. Outside of a few things, I don't take no for an answer for the most part. I
Spoken like a
I've heard
capitalist.
I've heard no many times. That's cool. That's good. It's no for now. Maybe not no tomorrow. Maybe it's not no in a year. I'll keep asking. But the truth of the matter is really the why, right? Like the why. The why is simple. I come from a blessed family, man. I'm not a religious man, you know that. But I'm a blessed man. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have a great family. I'm blessed to have great parents. I'm blessed to have people around me that were just good for me. My sisters, my cousins, my anyone. They were good influences, right? And I find that as a blessing. I'm blessed to have never missed a meal. I'm blessed to wake up today. And those are things that I've never taken for granted. In our company, so like my cleaning company, it's a level of respect and a culture of growth, happiness, searching for more, and finding meaning in what you do. And it's never more apparent in like cleaning, right? Like it's just cleaning. It's just cleaning. So there's no reason why our company should be anything special. However, it is the biggest in Southern California. How? It's only been 5 years. Why would it be the biggest? These other ones have existed 20, 30, 40 years. Why? I start with why. And so you asked me why I would help someone is because I was blessed enough to be given that without any help. Why wouldn't I want that to grow? I'm also a capitalist. So you'll say it yourself. Could you imagine? I mean, if you look at Christianity just as a whole, you start there.
Okay.
They built a dependence on people by giving them food and giving them a Bible. That was dependence, not my style. I actually work the opposite. So I have 10 clients that I work with currently, just 10 clients, and I work for them for 1 year. That's it. Just 10 clients with counseling. 10 clients, I work with them for 1 year. Not college counseling, life counseling. Those 10 clients are gone after a year. If I can't fix you in that year and you still need me for the rest of your life, there's a problem because that means I'm not doing my job. And that's how it works. I believe building an army is important, but building an army of good people is just as important. You know, have you ever seen the movie 300?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. There's a line, right? And he's like, hey, the guy comes in from, I don't know if he's Greek or someone comes in, right? And he's like, he looks at the 300 and he's like, dude, I brought it. Obviously, he doesn't say dude. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
I don't think they spoke that way back then. Anyway, so he's like, dude, I came in with 10,000 people, because I'm coming to support you. And you bring me these measly 300? And he says, yeah, I have 300. And he looks over and he looks into the army and he looks at one guy and he's like, sir, what do you do? He's like, shaking, and he's holding like a sword. He's like, I'm a baker. Looks at you. He's like, I'm a philosopher. Okay. And then he looks, I'm a teacher. And so he goes through like 3 or 4 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the main dude from 300, right? Gerard Butler, hot guy. You know, he's
Very
like
hot guy.
in that movie. And then he looks at him and he's like, you see, in those 10,000, I can promise you don't have one soldier. So, but you look back here and I have 300 warriors. I will take 300 warriors any day over 10,000 soldiers. So when I build my armies in life, I say, what is it creating? It's creating a network of good people that work hard, that are hungry, and strive for more. But never forget to be kind. That's the reason I do what I do. It's not for money, because you can ask any one of these kids how much money I've gotten off of their scholarships, and the answer is nothing. So that's pretty simple. But it's also easier to sleep that way. I'm in no means no Gandhi, dude. I am not Gandhi. Nor am I close, nor will I ever be. I'm very hungry usually. I'm not going to do that. And then second, I don't find his style as an important style. I think he was influential in life. However, I do believe in helping people. I've also said a million times, I help people because one day if I'm ever on the ground or if I ever pass and my family needs something, my wife and my son, I'm hoping some of these people will have some type of connection to something to help them out.
Mhm.
I believe in karma, man. I believe in karma more than anything else. That's my belief. So I try to do the right thing, and I make mistakes, but I try to do the right thing.
You stayed in Southwestern for how long? Like 5 years?
I don't know, dude. It was a blur because I was a dorm parent for 4. If you count dorm parenting, 9. But I was a dorm parent for 4 or 5, 4 or 5, and then I was a counselor for 4 or 5. I honestly don't know. It was right around
So
the
like
4 and 5
it's about 9 to 10 years. Well,
total.
did you ever like because you obviously left Southwestern already? Did you ever like have any regrets of like anything that you never ever wanted to do, but like just never got through?
Not really, man. I mean, I could tell you, but I forget them. So, similar to like the negative part, right? Like, hey, what would you say is a problem here? Was it if my job was to find problems to fix them, I would remember the problems. When my job isn't to remember the problems, I forget them. And it's, do I regret anything? No, I don't. I don't live with regret, man. If I didn't do it, it didn't happen. I just don't live with regret. But here's the thing: my present person lives with the idea that I don't want to regret. So today, you talk to me, I could have said no to this podcast and just been like, eh. But you know what? I say to myself, it's not convenient. I got to do this. I have to do that. But I don't want to live with regret not doing it. So I'm going to do it. So in my opinion, I say, well, what's the worst going to happen? I say yes to a lot of things. But I also know when to say no, because saying yes to something is also saying no to something else.
That's incredibly true.
Yeah. So again, regret? No regret, man.
You were the baseball coach. You obviously didn't need to do that. I don't think. Do you get any extra pay doing baseball coaching?
I was supposed to, but I didn't. Whatever.
That's you don't care.
I didn't do it for that.
I wouldn't care. Overall, like, would you say your baseball coaching career was a success?
Hell yeah. I had a blast, dude. That's how I was successful. And I'll tell you something, man. It goes back to impact. Sports teaches you so much about life. To me, baseball has just happened to be the sport that taught me the most about life. It also happens to be the sport that connects me the most to my mother. She was a big baseball fan. She was like in love with the Dodgers. We lived like 6 minutes away. We'd go to the games occasionally, randomly, just like watching the first inning and then go, oh, let's go to the game. All right, cool, let's go. And that's how easy it was. So much so that like in the 7th inning, I'd have the same ice cream with her all the time. And then when she passed, I would go back to the games and have the same ice cream in the 7th inning, even if she wasn't there. It was a way of connecting, right? So baseball's always been my therapy. It's always been where I got lost, and some people get lost in video games, which I also got lost in video games. And so baseball's always been my escape. And so in terms of success, for me personally, I mean, you'll have to speak to the other ball players. But for me personally, man, it was a huge success. And I think success isn't necessarily the winning or the losing. Success is really what you learn and who you become on the way. And so it was there when my son was born prematurely and almost died on us. It was there when my son banged his head off of on a piece of concrete and almost died on us again. It was there. And it was there similar to the way my psych class was there. It was there similar to the way you guys were there. It was there similar to the way I could always shit talk you guys in the morning because it was there. And it was a form of love, man. It was a form of love. So for me, baseball was a success. Naturally, if you look at just on the growth of the team and where it started, which you didn't see, but where it started, you saw some of it, but where it started to where it ended, some of it. Yeah. I can tell you that unless things change dramatically, that probably will never happen again. So was it successful? Yeah, of course, man. Of course. And all these boys are going off and doing the same thing in college. That's cool. That's cool to see. Now, so, yeah, I think it was pretty successful.
I talked about recruitment before. Does baseball have anything to do with recruitment? Because obviously Santi is an amazing ball player. Patty is an amazing ball player. They're obviously very athletic. Diego as well. Did that have anything to do with baseball?
Hell yeah. I'd be lying to you if I said no. But here's the beauty of it. If I could have a hardworking student, charismatic, that cares about academics, that wants more out of life, and plays baseball,
Yeah.
why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Now, if I got a bunch of pieces of lumber and they played baseball, but in class there were a bunch of morons, then I'd be an idiot, because
Yeah.
then that would be selfish.
Yeah.
But I say to myself, if I can get the whole package, why wouldn't I?
Mm.
So you asked me if baseball had anything to do with it? Of course it did. But there were better baseball players that could have gone with worse grades, and they didn't.
So what
So,
was
yeah.
the recruitment? What was the recruitment process? Do you just like, for one, they all come from Guadalajara, right?
They all did. That wasn't the initial plan. However, my connections through my nonprofit were out there. So naturally, I have big connections there. That's how it starts. It's the easiest way to vet without vetting. Is because those people have good business relationships with me. So what do? They've already been vetted by them. That starts from here. So it's really connections made over the last 10 years that led to something that happened 3 or 4 years ago. So that was the recruitment process. It's a lot of trust. And this is something you'll learn in capitalism and in business is trust. People trust me and I in turn trust them. We don't let each other down. Therefore, we grow together. That's an important part of business, and so that's how it started. And I don't know where it is currently. I actually can't answer that because I don't know. But it had all the makings of something that could have gone on and been something very special and continued to be special. Whether that was given any extra thought once I was gone, I don't know. The goal was not to be for 4 years. The goal was to be for the rest of the school's history. If they provided value, then why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do it? So I think you would probably agree that they provided a lot of different vibes at the school. And it made it significantly better just with the addition of like 5 or 6 people.
Yeah. I was gonna ask about that actually. Because we haven't, I don't think like the first 2 years without your recruitment, we haven't had a single like Mexican born students coming to Southwestern until you came. How important do you think diversity is when it comes to school? Because Southwestern tries to push it so much, but fails.
And I can go into the reasons why it fails because I have a lot of business reasons and knowledge as to why it fails. But that's not my job here. But I can tell you diversity is extremely important because we all see different things in life. And it's important to have wealthy with rich, rich with poor, poor with poverty stricken. Because your wealth is relative to who you surround yourself around. If I surround myself with people that I grew up with, I'm very wealthy. If I surround myself with a 12-year-old kid that just came to Southwestern Academy from China that drives a Lamborghini when he's 16, I'm very poor. Right? Very poor. And that's fine. Diversity connects all of it. And the beauty is nobody wears a name tag saying like, oh, financial aid, financial aid, financial aid, rich, rich, rich. Like nobody says that, right? However, they have their own name tags. Sometimes it's in the shoes, sometimes it's in the belt, sometimes it's in the bag, right? Diversity provides, in my opinion, provides you with a different perspective in life and a perspective that allows for you to appreciate the perspective you have. I'm a very fortunate human being. There's a great movie, it's called Motorcycle Diaries. It's a Motorcycle Diaries. It's about Che Guevara before he became Che Guevara, right? Like when he left, right? And he was an Argentine doctor, or he was going to be a doctor. And then he took his motorcycle tour through South America. And a part of that there's a scene, right? You know, I love movies. There's a scene
Yeah.
where he meets with this indigenous couple, and he says, they say, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Right? It's a very impactful scene because the person's like, "What are you doing here in Peru? Like, it's poor. There's nothing here, right?" And he says, "Oh, I'm traveling." They don't even know what traveling means. In other words, they say, "What is travel?" And so he looks at it and says, "Wait, hold on. You don't even know what the word means?" Like, no, they don't know what the word means. Why? Because they're too busy trying to find the next meal. And so that's the perspective that diversity brings, in my opinion. That's the perspective. Is we often forget that, like, our internet being slow and our phone not working, or our Lamborghini needing to get a flat tire changed, isn't the end of the world.
No.
It isn't.
Yeah.
It feels like it. It
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
But it's really not the end of the world, right? And so, to me, diversity allows for you to commingle with people that have different backgrounds and different lives. And I promise you this, man, as I think for the right people, having kids from other parts of the world that don't have as much has impacted their lives as much as those kids who have a lot have impacted the lives of those who do not.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, coming from less than most of the people at Southwestern,
Mm-hmm.
I saw something that existed that I didn't know existed, and I saw it as a possibility of something I could have. And sometimes you just have to be made aware that you can have something that you didn't know existed. You go to Subway, there's a little thing that says 50 cents for avocado. If they don't put that little sign, you don't know you can have avocado, man. Well, I found that when I was with you guys, I not only learned from the people who had nothing, but I learned from the people who had a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They told me there was avocado and what I had to do to get it. And that was a big one for me. And so that's the importance of diversity in school. It has nothing to do with numbers. It has to do, in my opinion, of creating the best culture at the school to then create the best warriors in life.
I think the same way, because you talked about richness a little bit, and you said it yourself. I feel like rich people always have this stigma of being assholes, and Southwestern Academy is obviously full of like incredibly rich kids, and sure, some of them are not the kindest of folks, but like that's the school when I realized that, hey, you can be rich and be a good person as well. Like
100%.
yeah, and I feel like some people just, there's a big stigma for like people to think like, oh, rich people, you got to be evil. You got to do something incredibly like insanely evil to get to be that rich. It's like, no, you could be a kind person. You could just be very, very lucky in life and be rich. It's just,
You know what? It happens to be, it's something that is a part of the mentality amongst either people who have less or people who are haters. But nonetheless, it's a mentality that rich people are assholes, poor people are assholes. To me, everyone's an asshole or everyone's a good person. Just happens to be they rich or poor. Like, that's just an additional description of who you are, right? I can tell you that Southwestern Academy had the richest, kindest people I've ever met. I thought they were good people. I saw you guys together and I just thought, man, what a great family. What a great family this is, because I think you guys as a whole really found each other and like leaned on each other. So you can, and I think you can point that to the support and lack of support from some of the staff, because some supported more than others. But also, I think that is what pushed you guys to be together, which pushes you guys to have a longer relationship, which pushes you guys to influence each other more. And so having money, not having money is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. You can be a great person with or without it. I'd rather be able to be myself with a lot of money than be myself with less.
of course.
And you mentioned luck. That's not a word I like to use, luck. It requires some
Yeah,
luck.
it does.
But I'll
It
tell you this,
does.
man.
It
Today,
does. It does.
today is payday here, and it's funny because I say this all the time. Today's payday at our company, and there's 48 checks being written today. 48 checks. That means 48 people have received income, and on a monthly or on a biweekly basis, we pump $75,000 into the economy on an every 2 week basis. So 150 to 200 every month. And I look at that and I say, man, I don't think that's a bad thing. Last time I checked, that's pretty good. That's pretty
really
good. So I say that because having money or not having money, it depends what you do with it, man. For me, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong with it. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. I found that at Southwestern Academy, I found so many nice people, man. So many good students, so many good people, so many good parents, along with the not so good people. It is what it is, man. It happens. Not a big deal. So yeah, I agree with you, man. Rich people are not assholes. They might be. There's some of them, but so are poor people. So we're good.
Now, I mentioned that you're like the Holy Spirit of Southwestern, like a father figure of Southwestern Academy. But you obviously have an amazing relationship with Mr. Neander. A couple of questions regarding him. For one, do you guys still talk?
Yeah, of course. We just texted yesterday.
Like why? What is it with Mr. Neander and you guys? Like, what did you see in him that like you could just be such a close friendship?
I don't know how first it started with funny. I mentioned Luke Park earlier, but it started with Luke Park. He's like, hey, you guys need to meet. And he kept telling Neander, hey, you got to meet Oka, this guy who's a dorm parent. And then he would tell me like, hey, you got to meet this guy Neander, dude. He's the history or PE coach. I don't know what he told me, right? But whatever. And then I was like, all right, man. Like he was trying to hook us up, dude, like on a date. And I'm like, all right, bro. Yeah, that's fine. And so heard it. In passing, was like, hey, what's up, man? How are you? Like when I would go to dinner or something, he happened to be there or something, right? And so Neander might be able to tell you how it started, but at some point we started like just randomly talking to each other, right? And then we got put into the same little bullshit office. Remember that little thing? Were you there when I had that little? Okay, that little section in between the hallway downstairs and the library, that little like alcove thing. Yeah. Well, there were two desks there, one against one wall and one against the other, where that ship is, right? Remember that ship?
Yeah.
Okay, so that ship used to be my office.
Oh.
So Neander had the other one. And I was like, all right, cool. So that summer, as a matter of fact, that's how it happened that summer. That summer, I'd gotten my first full-time job because, I just got my doctorate. And so I was like, oh, cool. So I started talking to him a little bit. He told me his life a little, told him mine, started shooting the shit. And then I was like, hey, I want to take my wife. I want to propose to her. I love her very much. And she's the woman for me. And, the standard romantic bullshit, right? And then she's like, you should go to St. Thomas. I lived there for X amount of years, the Virgin Islands. And so then he gave me advice, like go here, go there, blah, blah, blah. Well, at that point we connected, right? Because he had helped me out and then we'd help each other out. We like shoot different recommendations, just talk like, hey, how you doing? What's up with your family? Your family good? He's a very private person, believe it or not. He's only very open to people who he either feels comfortable with or he cares about. Me, on the other hand, I spill my life. I could care less. Everyone can know everything. I don't. There's nothing. Your judgment of anyone doesn't really bother me. So I move forward, right? He's very reserved, and so he started telling me about his life. And I can tell you something that I've told him that's made him cry countless times. He has been a very calming. I'm a high wired guy, dude. I'm wound tight, bro. Like don't. I'm very fiery, right? And I know that about myself. As a matter of fact, you're probably having this interview going like, dude, this guy's chilled out a lot. Right. But he told me many times, man, be patient, enjoy the moment. When you're ready to get into an argument with your wife or be frustrated with your son, just think back and say, is it the end of it or is it the beginning? take it calm, understand it's all going to be resolved. You love your wife, you love your son. Learn to hug your son, learn to play catch with him, learn to do. And he has easily given me one of the greatest gifts of my life, which is the consciousness that I've developed through his advice on being a father and being a husband, which I can tell you is easily my most important job in my life, being a father and being a husband. And so he's a huge influence in my life, man. And I can tell you that he's a great friend of mine for the rest of my life and the rest of his. And I appreciate him very much. And I hope I can offer the same amount of value that he did in my life, because he did. And so that's the reason why we're inseparable. But we also argue, man, just like good friends. So there you go.
I think you have to be able to argue with each other to be good friends. I think that's like
a real
incredible criteria. Like
100%.
Yeah.
Be able to recover from an argument means that you're legit friends.
Yeah.
And when you have to tippy-toe around each other, that means you can't say anything and you're really not friends, because one of you is having to hold everything in. So yeah, 100%, man. So I hope that answers the question.
My second part of the question, more of a business side. Do you think it will be able to do you think I can able to make him to do the podcast? Because I've talked to Kablu about it, and he said the same thing. He was very introverted about his life and about everything, but he's such a character. And I feel like it'll be an amazing podcast.
I think you'd have to talk to him. Naturally, he's still at the school. I don't know if that matters or not. But talk to him, man. I mean, talk to him, and he'll make his decision. He's a grown man. He'll make it. He's a good guy to have, man. He's a good guy to have.
Do you think he'll do it?
I don't know. I'm not gonna put anything in a podcast to tell you, bro. I could tell you that I don't know.
Almost got him.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna say that one because I don't know. He might not. I truthfully don't know though, man. I honestly I don't know if he would do it. I don't know.
I have a list of people that I want to ask in the podcast. Mr. Neander's one of the biggest people that I want. You are obviously one of the biggest people that I want. Mr. Veranda and Mr. Bourne is obviously I feel like Mr. Bourne has a ton of stories that happens in the dorm.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he wants to share it or not, but
I think it's a tough sell, and not everybody's open to this kind of thing. I'm doing it to support you, not so much to do anything other than to support you, man. Hope it works out. That was the logic. Neander, man, you gotta talk to him. I can recommend to you that my recommendation to you is you get a good diversity of people, including people you don't agree with or particularly want on there. Is an important part to invite those people too, because they might change your perspective on some things.
Mr. Veranda, I've talked to multiple people about him because I feel like he's such a big part of Southwestern Academy. He basically controls, micromanages Southwestern Academy. As a teacher and as a guy who's worked under him for 9 to 10 years, what kind of person is he? What kind of personality is he? The word that gets around a lot is stubbornness, and he likes to have things his way and his way alone.
It's funny, man. My relationship with him, even when I left, when I resigned, I have a letter somewhere, but it's on my, on my hard drive somewhere in there. It was nothing but thanks, man. I mean, is the guy perfect? No. Is the guy a great leader? Does he lead the way I would want to lead? I would not lead that way. That's not my style. It's not my style. In terms of micromanaging, quite honestly, man, I did whatever I wanted to. So that was easy. For me, maybe with others, it was the case. Luckily for the school, in my opinion, I did things that were better for the school, and not being micromanaged still allowed me to do better for the school, in my opinion. He gave me many opportunities, man. So I look at his leadership style as an old school leadership style, an antiquated leadership style. And I don't think that's a bad thing. However, I think in business, you should constantly reinvent yourself. You should constantly adjust, and you should constantly innovate. And sometimes when we're caught in the older ways of thinking, it's my way or the highway. I think running these businesses has taught me that there's a time and a place where it's my way or the highway. For example, I'll use my son as an example, as if it were a business, because he is a business. I will overly explain to him the reasoning and the logic. Overly explain. My clients, I overly explain. Employees, overly explain. When it's not taken positively and they're still like, but why? But why? I've become aware that it's going to constantly be a but why. Then it's my way or the highway. That's why. But you have to respect the person enough to explain the reasoning behind the decisions. And so for that reason, I say that's a newer style of leadership. If you look at sports as a whole, if you follow sports, you'll look at several different teams and you'll see the disappearance of old managers.
Yeah.
Why? Because people my age are now managing those teams. Because it's a different way of hugging someone, of expecting something. I'm a firm believer that I got the most out of these students because I respected them and I cared for them. I'm a firm believer of it. I didn't use fear tactics, even if people were scared of me. I don't know why. Probably just because I was going to fuck with their mind. That was it. So there's not really a reason, man. Like I got more out of it, right? And so we talk leadership, stubbornness, like qualities like that. Yeah, but those are, if you look at that generation of business leaders, entrepreneurs, business founders, that's the core of that character.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to understand that core character, you have to put yourself in that person's shoes. And so I left and I resigned with a long letter appreciating every opportunity I had. Because had he not been the person he was, I would not have had the opportunity, nor would those countless people have had the opportunity to go in with scholarships, nor would the school still be up and running. That was my logic, and that's the truth. Again, everyone can improve 100%, but
Yeah.
I don't leave negatively, because how much positive did I get from it, man? I mean, dude, the positive outweighs the negative 100%. So yeah, I mean, I know it's probably not the answer you want to hear, but that's the truthful answer from me.
No, I mean, I don't ask for a certain yes or no answer. I just want
Oh
people
yeah,
to
he's a dick.
speak.
Like I'm not gonna say
Yeah, that's the sound bit that I'm just gonna like edit everything out. That's just it.
Yeah, that's the only thing I said.
Yeah.
Oh well, I think oh yeah, he's a dick. That might work. That might work.
But you
Yeah,
said that like you want to leave a company every 5 years, but was there any specific reason why did you leave Southwestern Academy? What, 2 years ago? What I said, right?
Probably 2 years ago. I don't even remember, bro. But yeah, probably 2 years ago. Yeah. I mean, no, not a specific. But if I had to pinpoint one reason, there was not a reason, an external reason, other than, quite honestly, I had stopped growing. I could do what I used to do in 5% of the time, and the outcome would be just as good. And I'm not a fan of being comfortable, and I'm not a fan of giving 5% and getting great results. I'd rather give 100 and get extraordinary.
Was it because the students was like not as broken as they were, or was like?
No, I stayed for you guys for a bit. I had thought about it 2 years before that already. I was ready to go. I stayed for you guys for a bit, and every class kept in, just come on, man, one more class. And finally I was like, dude, I can't do another class. I'm fucking done. I'm done. And so that's what happened, man. I stopped growing. I still got the same results, but I stopped growing. And ultimately it was time. And you know, at some point when you're not happy with your work, it bleeds into your life and it bleeds into your family.
Yeah.
And I wasn't willing to give less of me to the people I love for, no offense, for kids that weren't mine.
No,
I got my own kid,
no,
and I'm
none
showing up.
taken,
I'm
none
showing up to
taken.
my house.
Actually, if you think it the other way around, that would be because I know, like, for example, Mr. Bourne. I sometimes like just joke about him, like, hey, why don't you and Miss Bridges ever have kids? And then and he always answers, I don't know, jokingly or not, but like, I already have 100 kids. I'm like, no,
Right.
this is work. Like, I hope you see it that way. We're just
They're
students.
actually employers.
Yeah,
Which
employers.
is
Right.
funny.
Yeah, we're just like employers. Like, we're like nothing to you. We're supposed to be nothing to you. But it's good that you see it that way. It's good to see it that way. And
I felt comfortable enough that I had done enough for you guys. I had done enough, and it was time to just go a different way, man. It's time for a personal passage, like a personal growth journey, and that was important for me. So that was my reason for leaving in a nutshell. But like I said, it's Mr. Bourne's an example. If he says he has 100 kids, it's not, and not everybody wants kids, man. That's something I had to learn.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants them, and maybe it's less responsibility if if you can hand them off to their real parents one day. It is responsibility for me. I don't find anything more meaningful in my life than being a father. So that's just me. But not everybody feels that way. So that's my happiness, and I ask everyone to just, if they're happy, then we're cool. There's no complaints if you're happy. The question is if you're happy.
So that was the podcast. I again thank Oka for such a inspirational and educational podcast, and for spending the time, because he truly didn't need to. He was obviously a very busy man, and for him to waste about an hour and a half for my stupid little podcast is very appreciated. See you in a couple of weeks.